Hello and welcome to another screencast where this time we'll be discussing some of the finer points of metabolism and energetics, as well as carbohydrate metabolism. Just an intro here to the carbohydrate metabolism stuff. But by the end of this, hopefully you should be able to describe and explain the relationship between metabolism and energetics. So they're related but different. Also looking at metabolism and the connection to aerobic respiration. And then finally, listing the basic steps involved with glycolysis, citric acid cycle, electron transport, oxidative phosphorylation there. So if you're an AP Bio, then you know a little bit more detail about this, but we're just going to kind of go over some of the basics here. So first off, metabolism up here is all of the chemical reactions that occur inside of the body, right? And in this case, inside of a cell. So we're concerned primarily here with the cells. So this is all of the chemical reactions. The two kind of basic chemical reactions that you have are catabolism and anabolism or anabolism. So the catabolism is the breakdown. So you're taking larger things and making them smaller. And anabolism is the building up of things, making them larger. More on that in just a minute. The energetics is the transformation of energy in the foodstuffs to ATP and heat, right? So these foodstuffs, this is why we are eating. So these foodstuffs are potential energy that the cell can't use directly, right? But those potential energy will be converted into ATP, which is the energy molecule of the cell. That is the molecule that the cells are going to use to do all sorts of different functions. Okay, so the foodstuffs that are going to go in are right here, are these organic molecules, right? So when we ate the blue cake, right, we had proteins, which will be digested down into amino acids. We had fats or lipids, right? So the oils, right, and fats. And then simple sugars are the carbohydrates. So those organic molecules are the things that go into the cells, right? So these are absorbed in the bloodstream and then also then transported into the cells of the body, right? So these organic molecules come from food we eat. Also included in here are things like vitamins and minerals, right? But these are the primary things that we want to focus on here. So these organic molecules enter cells and they become part of what's known colloquially as the nutrient pool, right? So these simple monomers here of amino acids and lipids and simple sugars are in this nutrient pool, and when you combine them together, right, they are used to, number one, right, maintain and repair the cell. So the cell's a busy place. The carbs, lipids, proteins get used to maintain that growth. Cells will grow and divide. We weren't always this size, right? So we get larger, we add more cells, right? And that also helps with repair. Right? When you damage cells, they will regrow themselves. Secretions, as you know, are a big thing. So most secretions of the body, right, of these cells are of protein base, but it's not the direct protein that came in. Remember that the amino acids are coming in, and that those will get put together to make the proteins. Those are the secretions, like hormones that get released, neurotransmitters, etc. And then finally, stored nutrient reserves, right? So the cell can pull from this nutrient pool and create stored nutrient reserves. Right? For example, things like glycogen, things like fat. Right? These are the two major storage molecules for energy for, as the text says, a rainy day. Right? So all of those things can also then be broken down in times of need. So if the cell's activity increases and the demand for ATP increases, these substances here can all be broken down and re-enter what was called the nutrient pool, and then enter this anaerobic catabolism or aerobic metabolism here. And we're going to focus primarily here on this aerobic metabolism. Right? So the amino acids, the lipids, the simple sugars can enter aerobic metabolism, of which there are 3 phases, right? 2 of which happen inside the mitochondrion here. So this aerobic metabolism, right, of the energy, potential energy that went in, 60% is lost here as heat and is not usable by the cell, and then another 40% is used to make ATP. And again, this ATP, this aerobic metabolism has converted the energy, potential energy in these organic molecules into stored energy of ATP. It's the big deal. The big deal is that ATP is used to do all of these cellular processes that are important, right? Moving cells, contracting cells, intracellular transport, so moving stuff around the inside of the cell, cytokinesis, making new cells, reproduction there, endocytosis, taking things in, exocytosis, secreting, right? Removing things, okay? So it might be a good idea just to kind of pause there and take a look at this. Let me just do this for you here. So this is the metabolism part. Is all the reactions that take place, the sum of all the reactions that take place inside the cell, all of the anabolic reactions and all the catabolic reactions, right? The energetics, the energy flow, is from these organic molecules here, stored energy in the potential in the bonds of these organic molecules to the nutrient pool, and then used here in aerobic respiration to make potential energy in the bonds of ATP. So might be a good idea there to pause and summarize that. So this aerobic respiration is sort of kind of a big deal and can be broken down into 3 main phases. I'm not worried about all the details on this slide, right? But cells are going to use aerobic respiration to produce this ATP. The first phase is glycolysis. This happens out in the cytoplasm, where 6-carbon glucose molecules are going to be converted into these 3-carbon pyruvate molecules. Those pyruvates will then enter the mitochondrion, where the second main phase here, the citric acid cycle, occurs. The citric acid cycle is occurring inside the mitochondrion. The third main phase is the electron transport system. So without this glucose, without pyruvate, you don't run the citric acid cycle. Without the citric acid cycle, you don't run the electron transport system. The electron transport chain, electron transport system is a big deal because look how much ATP is being produced here from one single molecule of glucose. We get a lot of ATP molecules that are produced here in aerobic respiration. Not shown on the diagram is that this is aerobic because oxygen will be used to run this electron transport system. Again, a lot more details here that we're not going over, but just suffice it to say that I want to show you, again, that you are using organic molecules here, glucose, which is the example in this case, right? The stored bonds in the potential energy stored in the bonds of this glucose molecule are ultimately via glycolysis, citric acid, and electron transport going to be converted into these ATP molecules over here that then can be used to run the cell. So this is the summary of energetics, the energy transfer. So I want to just back up a second, and now that we have this, show you that it's not just glucose that is going to be used here, right? So this, revisit this nutrient pool, again, inside of the cell, this nutrient pool came from the amino acids and carbs and lipids that were in the blood that got into the blood from the GI tract. So there's the GI tract, and we absorbed these things from the GI tract into the blood, and then from the blood into the cells. Going up this way, these are all anabolic reactions going up this way, right? So these fatty acids can be used to make triglycerides, and these triglycerides are fats that are stored. Right? Glycogen is stored glucose, and then using amino acids to make the cell's own proteins. Again, so those are all going up. Those are all anabolic reactions. But that nutrient pool can also be used to make these small carbon chains here that will then be able to enter this second phase, the citric acid cycle, which is inside the mitochondrion. And because I can do the citric acid cycle, that means I can do the third phase, this electron transport system. Right? And here's oxygen coming in, and water is going to be produced as a byproduct, and then ATP is going to be made right over here. So again, this diagram is just showing you that these nutrient pools can be used either to do anabolic stuff or to do catabolic reactions here. We can break them down, break the bonds, and use that potential energy to make ATP in aerobic respiration. Again, variation on the theme. We're going to see this again and again and again. Cells use molecules absorbed in the digestive system to build up resources, manufacture cellular processes, and run respiration pathways to produce ATP. What you should see here, again, is that lipids, carbs, and proteins can be used in catabolic reactions to make fatty acids, right, glycerol, pyruvate, these amino acids. They can all eventually feed into this central system right here, glycolysis. The second one, citric acid inside the mitochondrion. And the third, electron transport. Okay? We're going to see this diagram a little bit more specifically when we talk about carbohydrate metabolism. Okay? So, hopefully here now you are able to describe the difference between metabolism and energetics. Talk to us a little bit about the relationship between metabolism and aerobic respiration. And then identify and describe briefly here the 3 steps involved with aerobic respiration, namely glycolysis, citric acid, and the electron transport. Okay, thanks for listening, and bring your questions to class.